Here's a decision I struggle with. Whenever I go out of my house, I have to decide what little gaming handheld I'd like to bring with me. And I know this is a weird problem to have, but it's something I'm faced with all the time because there's so many of these handhelds coming out at any given point in the year that there's just a slew of things to pick from. So I'm going to break down the newest handhelds released at the beginning of 2025 and tell you my current handheld to-go setup. There's been a few changes and there's been a lot of new handhelds released, so let's go over some of the new handhelds for 2025 and then get into my personal setup.
So this is going to be for the devices that didn't get a full dedicated review. We're going to go over the Miyoo Flip V2, the unnamed R36S, the new Anbernic Pocket Micro color and control schemes, and then Powkiddy's been pretty busy with the X35H, the V20, and the RGB20 Pro. We're going to have to talk about these naming conventions. So the Miyoo Flip, when it originally came out, had some issues with the screen hinge. Well, I'm here to report with the V2 that there's not really any issues with it anymore. It's got a very snappy hinge, and this is in the clamshell form factor, with A, B, X, Y face buttons, a D-pad, but then also they sunk into joysticks right here that are clicky and hidden away. It's just slightly smaller than the Anbernic version, and around the same size as the regular Game Boy Advance SP. The heavier feel doesn't really go with the heavier price tag here. This one's around 80 bucks, and it still feels a little cheap. Plays really well, the software is good, and I have no issues with any of the controls. Moving on, I've been hearing a lot about this R36S, and I'm not sure if it came out at the beginning of 2025 or back in 2024, but I'm now just getting introduced to this handheld, and for 35 bucks, this thing is dirt cheap. And I would say this has a great control scheme. The screen is fine. The overall device fit, finish, and feel is definitely where they skimped on. The plastic feels kids' toy-ish, and so do all of the buttons and controls, but everything works how you'd expect it to. It doesn't take any corners when it comes to the actual performance of the device. I'm not sure who's making this one, but they make it a ton of different colors, and I think this is a pretty good entry point for the $35 mark. Now we're going from the absolute bottom of the barrel to the Anbernic Pocket Micro. This thing is in the premium category, coming in at around $200. We have the standard black version here, but then we also have the Soul Red and Retro Gold colorings. The one I have here is the Retro Gold. And this thing looks absolutely fantastic, but the only problem I have with this is that the actual thumbsticks are more in the way than I actually want them to be. So I wish they had like a PSP style joystick where it just sits flush on the face of the device, because it's useful to have, but I don't need it all the time. The D-pad's up at the top, so I'm going to be playing D-pad centric games. The joysticks are there for, added functionality. This thing doesn't have great triggers on the back. This is more of a Game Boy Advance exquisite experience, in addition to some great Android games. So the ergonomics of this one are definitely based on what you're going to be playing. I'd recommend D-pad centric games for this because of the screen size, the screen ratio, and just how this thing overall is laid out. The fit and finish is absolutely fantastic though. A piece of glass goes over the entire front face of this, and if you're interested in the full breakdown video, I'll link my full review down below. They're also going to be releasing this without the sticks at some point, but you can also remove the top caps. So if you wanted to, I actually cut mine down and just jam the cap back on there, and it's actually quite a bit shorter. And moving on to things that are short, I guess cats are short, so we'll talk about Powkiddy now. The X35H, the V20, and the RGB20 Pro. I'm not sure what Powkiddy's been up to. The X35H here is a new one in their lineup, and it's kind of aimed at that middle ground Anbernic device that plays pretty much all the way up to the Nintendo DS era of things. This thing is a horizontal handheld with 3.5-inch IPS 640 by 480 resolution screen and a 3000 milliamp hour battery. It's an interesting entry-level handheld that Powkiddy put together here, and it's a little more refreshing than the other things they've been working on, which are the V20 and the RGB20 Pro. So the V20, I have to first comment on the V10. I really liked the V10 and the size and button layout in addition to its screen that it had. I'm not sure if this is the next in their lineup, but it looks like they changed the screen, kept the buttons around the same, but then added joysticks and kind of made it like all their other handhelds. So I'm not quite sure what they were going for here, but this one is one of your run-of-the-mill vertical handheld emulators emulators that'll play pretty much all the way up to the Nintendo DS. Not sure what was going on with the SD cards here, but I tried a bunch of different things. I was able to play a few games on it, but it's nothing to write home about. To be honest, if you're playing in this form factor and need the sticks, I would get a different device than this. I would get one of the horizontal devices. I don't personally like where the sticks are. They're way, way too far down, or the new Miyoo Flip that just came out. I'd rather have that instead. Or the V10. I would prefer that over this. So now let's talk about the RGB20 Pro, which I don't know what makes this professional, but it definitely does look cool, which is why I was interested in taking a look at this one. It doesn't really do anything differently. We reviewed a long while ago the Powkiddy RGB20SX, which, to be honest, is a way better device than this one. The control scheme and layout of this thing doesn't lend itself to great gameplay. They kind of just made this to look cool, I think. The sticks being farther down at the bottom kind of get them out of your way on the RGB20SX, and they give you an enormous screen on this one. Whereas the RGB20 Pro, it kind of jams all of the controls up at the top. It's not my favorite console. If you're looking for a big vertical handheld emulator like this, I would recommend getting the RGB20SX instead of the Pro. I think this one is mainly for looks and not for actually gaming.
So for all the hardware out of all these devices, I think my favorite is the Miyoo Flip and the Ayaneo Pocket Micro in the different colors, and they are also doing another version of this just without the sticks, basically keeping everything the same, just getting rid of the sticks, which I actually think is a great idea. Let's dive more into the actual software of each one of these pieces of hardware, and then we'll go about comparing and contrasting a few other things next.
So now let's quickly go through all of the different operating systems and recommended power bands that we're going to be able to play up to on here. Starting off with the Miyoo Flip V2, with all the hardware in check, this one will be able to play up to the Nintendo DS and N64 comfortably, while anything else 16:9 just doesn't really fit this screen size. So that's where I'd keep this, and this is also a Linux-based emulator. Moving on to the R36S. This is another Linux-based handheld that is running RetroArch. This has some pretty great overlays and very basic functionality, which is kind of what you want in a price point device like this. It's very cheap, has plenty of fast forward, rewind, and save states built right in addition to being super cheap. This thing being $35 before shipping is just pretty cool, and comes in a slew of different colors. If you haven't tried emulation before, this is one I'd pretty highly recommend because you can't really beat the price. Now moving over to the Ayaneo Pocket Micro, this one is running Android, meaning you're going to have the slew of Android games you can play on this device, in addition to being able to play up to the GameCube and PS2 era of things, with the PS2 being hit or miss on some of the games. The GameCube ran pretty well on this device, but it's not what I'd recommend unless you're playing specifically with the D-pad. Where this thing shines is games that are like Game Boy Advance games. So you're looking for like a boxy pixel style of art, in addition to being able to use the D-pad as the control scheme. I recommend the Turnip Boy games on Android. They really are a good fit for this device. Moving over to Powkiddy's litany of devices that have been coming out, the X35H is a Linux-based device that the overlays and software are just okay. They get everything done and I don't really have any issues with them, but when compared to something from like Anbernic, it doesn't feel quite as polished. This will be playing up to the Nintendo DS and N64 era of things. The N64 is a little hit or miss. And this is pretty much the same thing for the Powkiddy V20 and the RGB20 Pro. These really aren't new chipsets that we're working with. With these screen sizes and shape, I wouldn't really be trying to play anything else on here anyway. So those are the power levels that I recommend for these devices.
So now that we know everything about these pieces of hardware and what software they're rocking, let's go and look overall what I'm actually using on a day-to-day basis when I go out anywhere other than my house. Are any of these going to be taken with me? Let me show you what I'm taking outside.
So I like to bring 3 different types of devices with me when I go somewhere on like a vacation or for a long weekend. I generally like to bring a small device that's D-pad centric so I can play, standing in lines or waiting somewhere that I wouldn't normally be. I also like to bring a mid-sized device that's still generally pretty small, but that has a little bit more power and functionality, typically going to be an Android device or one of the smaller Nintendo Switches, like this Switch OLED I put together. And I'll generally bring one other device, like the Steam Deck here in case I want to do any computing in addition to longer game sessions. We're talking sitting on the beach for a few hours and crushing through some parking lot garage rally. So for my D-pad device, I'm going to be using the Anbernic RG35H SP. Now in this video, the two other contenders that I have been going between are the Ayaneo Pocket Micro here and the Miyoo Flip V2. They're all very good, with the clamshell device being my preferred option because, man, it is just so nice being able to flip it closed. It does everything for you and then just flip it back open, hit the power button, and be back right into whatever game it was. Now, I am using MUOS on the Anbernic, but I did notice the Miyoo's was actually pretty fast and very responsive going right back into your game as well. So I might actually switch over to that, but for right now, I'm sticking with the Anbernic because I like the blue color, and I like that it has a bigger D-pad and no sticks. In addition to that, I'm still rocking the Ein Odin 2 Mini. I really like this device, and it is just fantastic to play PS2 games all the way at full power on such a tiny device. This is where I'm playing through old GameCube games, my Android game collection, and anything else I feel like playing at the time. This having a really bright screen is really nice. This is a mini LED screen and it's just super bright. Realistically, if you needed to go between all three of these, you could just bring this device. And moving up to a heavier hitter of a handheld, I've been going between the Asus ROG Ally X and my Steam Deck, and I'm still sticking with the Steam Deck, not because it's got more power, but it is just so dang useful. It works and feels just like a handheld game console, and when I'm at the house, I can stream all of my games from my PC without actually having to download them, which is a big plus for me.
So these are the things that I bring outside with me when I go to touch grass or look at the sun. But the problem here is these aren't the ones I play all the time either. I do get a good amount of playtime with these, but these are like the ones I want to play while I'm not at the house. While I'm at my house and I have access to fast Wi-Fi and my desktop sitting downstairs, it's a whole different ball game.
Meaning I'm using streaming services and trying to not sit at my desk as much as I possibly can, because that's where I'm sitting right now and doing this voiceover. And it's really nice to be able to pick up a handheld that's already connected to your Wi-Fi and connect to one of the stronger devices in your house over Wi-Fi and play whatever game you want outside or in bed or on a nice couch versus sitting in my stupid desk chair. So for me right now, I'm using 3 different streaming devices. The Steam Deck for Steam games, the Odin Portal 2 for any Xbox or Android games that I'm into, turn it boy, and the PlayStation Portal for PlayStation games and PlayStation streaming has been fantastic. But these are really only when I'm at the house. I don't really take these out and try and stream over mobile networks. It's just not there for me.
This has been a roundup of the beginning of 2025, and if you like this format, I'm going to do it again because there's so many of these coming out, and I'd like to at least glance over them so you have some sort of visuals to say, hey, at least you got this versus nothing at all, because there's so many coming out. We had 3 from Powkiddy within the last 6 months, so it's a lot. So I at least glanced over these. I'm trying a different method to get more of these handhelds reviewed and pictured and giving you guys some visuals. If you like this, let me know in the comment section below. If you don't like it, well, tough. I don't have a million hours to make videos. And if you're interested in winning one of these handhelds, because like I said, there's a million of them coming out all the time, subscribe down below and we give one away every month to a subscriber. All right, that's all I have for you all.